I'm Irina Bokus. Welcome to the Future of Learning. In the recent years, there has been a lot of talk about 21st century skills. It is certainly becoming very clear that in order to live and succeed in a global society, students must learn the essential skills, such as critical thinking, problem solving, communication and collaboration. In public education, however, there seems to be a continuous disconnect between what many educators believe their students require and on what they should spend their time in their classrooms, and external demands, generally associated with standards, assessments, curriculum, and instruction. Could it be that our legislature has stuck in the past when it comes to education? Jim Tatter, a former Clarkston educator who now represents 43rd District in the Michigan House of Representatives and who is also on Education Committee, has joined us to share his views on the 21st century education in legislative actions that are necessary to support it. Well, Jim, thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure to have you here. It seems to me that it now comes down to our legislators to decide what our students need to learn and how this learning would be assessed. But as an educator, which is you are, and as a parent, what do you believe is the purpose of education and what learning our students need to do in order to succeed in the future?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on your program
Absolutely.
today. Well, as a former educator, as a parent, and now a legislator who very much enjoys being part of the Education Committee, and also talent and workforce development, it's critical that we remain engaged on this topic and this conversation. And with respect to 21st century skills, you covered a few of them: the critical thinking, the problem solving, the collaboration, the tenacity, the grit. All of those things encompass what many view as important and, if not essential skills for future success. So certainly when we look for education now and into the future, we need to encompass those skills, and also with the foundation of having your core subject matter areas, your English language arts, your math, your science, your social studies. Having those foundations, but taking that learning and bringing it to a deeper level, and those 21st century skills that you were referring to, and they're very much a part of educational discussion and research these days, is a very important component of that. So I think you need both of those pieces in order to have a successful education.
That's what I think one of the biggest challenges, I guess, with teaching 21st century skills is those who think critically and communicate effectively need to be able to do it on the basis of a core academic subject knowledge. And sometimes it's pretty challenging. So in terms of our current standards, how can it be done within this context?
Well, I think the standards at present that we embrace do in large part emphasize those critical thinking skills. So I think we're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's important that we balance state and federal control of education and temper that with local control as well, because I would argue that 95% plus of the districts in this state are doing great by our kids, and we need to continue to empower them in order to build the education of the future.
So do you believe that the standards that currently are adopted in the state of Michigan are helping with developing the 21st century skills or not?
I would say, with respect to the Common Core state standards, mm-hmm. they're in and of themselves. There's some good things there. The reluctance I have, however, is that these are copyrighted standards owned by two public interest groups, the National Governors Association, mm-hmm. the Council for State School Officers, and so in and of themselves, the standards are benign. But again, at what cost does it rob our local districts of their ability to adapt and change education as they see fit for our local kids?
So do you believe then the standards should be adaptable and flexible based on the school district?
I would say, again, getting back to an earlier point, that we need to strike a balance. You know, certainly having state and federal oversight to some degree is okay, but allow our local districts to have a little more latitude in getting more creative and innovative. Because after all, we want our kids to learn 21st century skills. Why aren't we not also allowing our school districts to have that same flexibility?
All right, so that is kind of going nicely to my next question, which is probably the most debated ones of all, and that's related: how do we really assess students' learning so it truly represents the picture and complete story of child's learning, not just a snapshot? And very often the state assessment systems will provide exactly that, a snapshot rather than the entire picture. And then, of course, it's a high-stake assessment, which means finances and school effectiveness and a lot of other things are determined. So how do you think that state assessment system could become more aligned to what teachers are trying to do in the classrooms?
That's an excellent point, and certainly last year was challenging to parents, schools, and students alike. You know, in some cases, the M-STEP statewide assessment was taking away 11 hours or more of classroom instruction.
Sometimes more.
The good news, the Michigan Department of Education has heard these concerns, which I've certainly echoed up in Lansing. So, while a state assessment, I think, is an important component, but to your point, it's really nothing more than just a snapshot. And in my opinion, shouldn't be more than a snapshot, because there are so many other dimensions to education. You know, as we see performance-based assessments gaining greater latitude, in not only here in our district, but throughout the country. So we need to tender the balance with respect to assessments too. That I don't think we should ever do away completely with statewide assessments, but at the same time, they shouldn't certainly count toward 40 or 50% toward the whole picture of not only a student's performance, but also the teacher's performance. And I've been on the side of supporting more local say and more local control over how we evaluate student success and how we evaluate teacher performance.
Well, do you believe that more of a flexible assessment that will allow some local control or local assessment that, for example, teachers do in their classrooms be used as a part of the state assessment? Perhaps not the entire assessment, but at least a portion of it.
Absolutely, and I was pleased to play a part in the current teacher evaluation package, and I was very much on the side of lowering the percentage that the local or the statewide assessment plays in the whole picture. Because had we not done something, we're talking about 50% of that statewide assessment being used to evaluate teacher and administrator effectiveness. And by all means, I believe that is, you know, tilting the scale in the other direction. And so perhaps 15% or 20% at the most might be deemed an acceptable component. Because whether that assessment is worth 50% or 15%, it's still giving us the same objective measure across the state. But I would, you know, certainly on the side of those that believe that putting too much weight in a statewide assessment not only disregards the other ways in which students are able to demonstrate their aptitude, but it simply puts too much weight at the state level.
Is it something that is currently being considered by the Educational Committee?
Well, I would say the teacher evaluation bill would have been the most recent.
What about the student assessment? The M-STEP.
The M-STEP, you know, unfortunately, the legislature doesn't have. We have little oversight over the Michigan Department of Education. It's one of the few agencies where they have a level of autonomy. So while we work with them, we have less ability to really impose our view. But certainly we work in tandem with them, and with respect to that, they have been very, very good in acknowledging that the M step was too much.
Yeah.
So you're certainly going to see some changes to this year's assessment. Certainly less time required of our kids.
Okay. And what other initiatives are being considered by the Education Committee right now in respect to learning?
You know, I guess I'm going to speak. I'll speak through my lens first, but you know, back to giving the schools more autonomy. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested in what some of the other states are doing. For example, Kentucky has offered a program called Districts of Innovation, mm-hmm. and what it allows for, it allows local school districts to apply for exemptions from a lot of these otherwise burdensome state and national requirements, mm-hmm. and allows them to, I guess, bring a little bit of creativity and innovation into
like
a school district. Yeah, mm-hmm. a waiver of sorts. And early findings are proving that this is working out to be a really great model. So Kentucky is one. There's another one out of New Hampshire called
mm-hmm.
PACE.
Yeah,
which emphasizes performance assessments. Mm-hmm. So again, getting back to the fact that our standardized tests shouldn't be the primary means through which we evaluate student performance. Okay. So I'm really excited to continue my research in seeing how we could bring those models to Michigan. You know, I might add, New Hampshire is still in like a pilot phase.
Yes.
There's a handful of school districts there, and likewise Kentucky, there are a handful of school districts that are utilizing the Districts of Innovation. But in my view, you know, while we do need to maintain that necessary evil of a statewide assessment as a objective means of measure, mm-hmm. we also need to allow our school districts, if we want to continue to create those and foster those environments for 21st century learning, that we do so by giving our schools more latitude.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your perspective, and thank you for being here today. All students require 21st century learning opportunities to strive as tomorrow's leaders, workers, and citizens. They need a broad range of experiences. An innovative support system, including standards, curriculum, and assessment, is a must for students to master their multidimensional abilities that will be required of all of them. Let's hope that all of our legislators understand that.